The early morning sun bathed the rolling hills of Kiriaini in golden hues, casting long shadows across the quiet, verdant landscape. The village was alive with the sounds of birds chirping and the rhythmic rustling of maize stalks swaying in the breeze. Amidst this rural tranquility lived Wanyee, a young Kikuyu girl, with ambitions far greater than what her small village could offer. At 17, Wanyee had a fire in her heart, one that could not be easily quenched. She excelled in school, top of her class at Kiriaini Secondary School, with a keen interest in literature. The walls of her school, however, were not the only boundaries Wanyee sought to escape. She dreamed of a future beyond the farm, beyond the constraints of Kikuyu customs that dictated a woman's place, marriage, children, and obedience to her parents. It was in this pursuit of knowledge, away from her parents' watchful eyes, that she met Otieno. Otieno was different from anyone Wanyee had ever met. He was from Siaya, a Luo boy who had come to live with his uncle in Kiriaini. His father had sent him here to attend school, hoping to provide him with a chance at a better life. Tall and striking, with an infectious smile and quick wit, Otieno was a breath of fresh air to Wanyee. He was thoughtful, curious, and ambitious, a combination that both intrigued and intimidated her. The two met by chance in the school library, surrounded by books on history, poetry, and world literature. Wanyee, her nose buried in a novel, was startled when a deep voice asked, "You seem lost in another world. What's the book about?" She looked up to find Otieno standing there, a playful glint in his eye. He was holding a copy of a novel she had recently read, but her mind was elsewhere, distracted by the way he spoke and looked at her. They struck up a conversation, and before long, their talk shifted from books to their hopes for the future. Otieno talked about wanting to make a difference in his community, while Wanyee dreamed of studying abroad. The connection was immediate. For the first time, Wanyee felt like she had found someone who truly understood her. He was not just a Luo boy to her, not a tribal outsider, but someone who shared her values and dreams. Slowly, as weeks turned into months, they found time to meet after school, in the quiet corners of the village, hidden from the eyes of their communities. They laughed together, shared their fears, and dared to talk about a future they both yearned for. They fell in love quietly, privately, in the midst of a society that would never approve of their bond. One evening, after a particularly passionate conversation about what they might achieve together in the future, Wanyee returned home to find her father, Mugo, and her mother, Wanjiku, speaking in low, intense voices in the kitchen. "Wanyee is seeing that boy again." Mugo's voice was sharp, full of disapproval. "I don't know why she insists on seeing him," Wanjiku replied. "I can see it in her eyes. She's too taken with him. But we cannot allow this, Mugo. It's not right." Mugo's tone grew darker. "That Luo boy? He is not our kind. Our people do not marry outside of our tribe. What will the community say? What will our elders think?" Wanyee's heart sank as she overheard their conversation. Her secret was out. The next day, Mugo confronted her. "Wanyee," he said, his voice colder than she had ever heard it before. "We know you have been meeting with that Luo boy. This nonsense has to stop. You will marry a man of our own people, Mwangi, a good Kikuyu man from the neighboring town. He will provide for you. He will honor you. This boy, Otieno, will not." Wanyee froze, the words crashing over her. "Papa, I love him. Please, I don't want to marry Mwangi. I want to be with Otieno." Her father's face darkened, and his gaze grew stern. "Love? You are still a child, Wanyee. You do not understand what love is. You must understand the importance of tradition and the future of our family. We have worked hard to maintain our place in this community. You cannot throw all of that away for the sake of a fleeting romance." Her mother, though more sympathetic, nodded in agreement. "You know we love you, my daughter, but this is the right thing for you. Mwangi is a good man. You will learn to love him." But Wanyee's heart was already heavy with the weight of their expectations. She knew she had a difficult decision ahead of her, a choice between the love she felt for Otieno and her parents' wishes. The days that followed were filled with tension. Wanyee was torn between her loyalty to her parents and her love for Otieno. She could not imagine a life without him. yet the pressure from her family was overwhelming. Then, one evening, Otieno met her at their usual spot by the old mango tree near the school. "I've been thinking, Wanyee," he began softly, his voice full of sadness. "Maybe it's time for us to let go." Wanyee looked up at him, her heart breaking. "What do you mean? I don't want to let go of you, Otieno. I can't bear to see your family suffer because of us," he said. "They will never accept us. And you, Wanyee, you are caught between your love for me and your duty to them. I won't be the cause of your pain." Tears welled up in Wanyee's eyes. "But I don't want to lose you. You're the only one who understands me. Don't you love me?" "I do," Otieno whispered. "But love isn't enough when our worlds are so different. I want you to have the life you deserve, a life free from this conflict. I'll leave, Wanyee. I won't stand in the way of your future." And just like that, their love story came to an end. Otieno left without saying goodbye, disappearing into the distance as Wanyee's heart shattered. Chapter 4. The Betrayal. Wanyee's parents wasted no time arranging her marriage to Mwangi, the wealthy Kikuyu suitor they had chosen for her. The wedding was held within weeks of Otieno's departure, a joyous celebration for everyone except Wanyee. Mwangi was a good man, handsome, successful, and from the right tribe, but to Wanyee he was a stranger. She did not love him, nor did she feel the warmth that Otieno had sparked in her heart. But what could she do? She had made the sacrifice, as expected of her. She gave birth to a son, Kamau, and took on the role of a dutiful wife. Yet, in the quiet moments when she sat alone at night, she couldn't help but think of Otieno. The love they shared never truly faded, but her heart was now shackled by the weight of responsibility, duty, and societal expectations. Chapter 5. The reunion years passed, and Wanyee's life continued in a rhythm dictated by her family, her husband, and her son. Her love for Otieno had remained a secret, locked away in a place where no one could find it. But fate, as it often does, had its own plans. Otieno returned to Kiriaini one sunny afternoon, a successful businessman with a quiet dignity. He had never married. He had never stopped loving Wanyee. Their reunion was an accident. Wanyee had gone to the local market to buy some vegetables when she turned a corner and saw him standing there, as tall and handsome as ever. For a moment, time stopped. Her heart skipped a beat. "Otieno?" Her voice was soft, uncertain, but her eyes betrayed her, filling with a mix of surprise and longing. "Wanyee," Otieno said her name as though it were a prayer. "I never thought I'd see you again." They stood there, silent, taking in the years that had passed. The world around them continued, people bustled past, but nothing seemed real. The only thing that mattered was that they were standing in front of each other again. Their conversation started with awkward pleasantries, but soon the floodgates opened. They spoke of their lives, their choices, the pain of the years apart. Wanyee told him of Kamau, of her strained marriage to Mwangi, and of how she had never stopped thinking of him. Otieno confessed that he had never married anyone else, that his heart had remained hers. "I've waited for you, Wanyee," he said quietly. "I've always loved you." Tears welled up in Wanyee's eyes as she stepped forward, taking his hand in hers. "And I've always loved you." For the first time in years, Wanyee felt a sense of peace wash over her. The choice she had made years ago, the path her life had taken, was no longer a burden. She had found her way back to the one person who had understood her from the very beginning. Their reunion was not without complications. There was her son, her husband, and the expectations of their families to navigate. But in that moment, they knew that love, though delayed, could still be rekindled.